with your energy forecast for Saturday, July 26th. So we have the moon in this Leo energy going void, of course, at 7:03 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're locking into Virgo energy at 4:56 p.m. again Eastern Standard Time. So first of all, the transition out of Leo energy into Virgo energy is never really a favorable one because we're going from the boldness, the bravery, the courage, the passion, the excitement, the activation of the heart space of wanting to take action and make moves and actually see some progress in our lives, to an earth energy ruled over by Mercury, which means that we have some reassessing to do. We have some analyzation to do. We have some refinement to do. We got to get down to the nitty-gritty of those smaller details that are going to make up the greater, grander whole of the vision, the goal, the dream that we are just starting to realize. And so, although it is not fun, it is a part of the lunar process that we have to go through in order to analyze the smaller details of our inner realm dialogue, of our emotions, and of our plans. This particular lunar phase is definitely going to put us all up in the headspace and make us feel in our physical body how we're responding to some of the different options, opportunities, and variables that we need to be percolating on in order to actually make a part of our plan, of our strategy. So we're definitely going to become a lot more calculated, if you will, in this Virgo energy. Also, reminder, the moon in Virgo is here to identify what isn't working, what the problem is. Specifically, coming out of this new moon energy, we're figuring out what is blocking the path, what we have to eliminate, what we have to remove in order to free up the path for us to be building and creating the goal, the vision, the dream. And so the moon in Virgo, first of all, we have to identify the problem in order to fix it, but it is the fixer, the healer, the repairer of the zodiac. And so again, there's a lot of logical, practical analyzation going on who and what needs to stay, needs to go, what we can do better, and where we can make those adjustments in the present moment, in our mental plane, in our emotions, in our physical realm, in order to help the cause of us getting from where it is that we're at to where it is that we desire to be. So with all of that being said, we're still very much kind of in the tail end of the dark phase of the moon. There's not really a little bit of light in the sky at this point. It's still kind of dark. So we're still kind of sorting through our thoughts and through our feelings with no real new illuminations coming at us. But as the moon kind of gets going here, specifically towards the end of the day, when we get into that Virgo energy and we sit in it throughout the course of Sunday, that is definitely going to bring a couple of puzzle pieces to our awareness. That's definitely going to help snap those puzzle pieces together and reveal the greater, grander picture that we're trying to build towards. With all of that being said, there are 13 different aspects popping off here today, a little bit of a busy day in the cosmos. 10 of those aspects are going to involve the moon. The very first aspect of the day actually involves Mercury. Mercury being ruler of the mental plane, ruler of information, communication, how it is that we express ourselves. He's currently retrograde, again, doing an inner realm reflection, review. This is in Leo energy. So we're trying to get the heart and head on the same page with some of the big ideas, some of the big emotions, some of the big dreams, visions, goals, and desires that we're currently percolating upon. Mercury is going to be making a positive interaction with that North Node in Pisces. So we essentially are figuring out where it is that we would like to go from here by figuring out where it is that we've been, where it is that we're at, and where it is that we no longer desire to be. And so this is a classic case of us being in reflection mode, in review mode, in recalibration mode, restructuring mode, in our inner realm between our heart and our head, realizing, again, what we have no desire to continue to pour into and what we would prefer instead. That North Node in Pisces is trying to get us on the right path, trying to get us in alignment with the next goal, mission, purpose, vision, dream. But in order to do that, we kind of have to flip the script on our inner dialogue, on our narrative, on our perspective, and that is exactly what Mercury is doing. This is essentially weeding out the older, outdated programming and clearing up that space to build something new there that is definitely going to be more in alignment, resonating more with our higher selves. Again, the North Node in Pisces requires us to kind of trust the greater, grander process, to surrender to some of the situations and circumstances that are popping off, the information coming at us. Just observe. We do not have to absorb, just observe. The moon in this Leo energy is then going to make a beautiful interaction with Mars. Mars is the god of war, ruling over our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our desire, even our anger. He's in Virgo energy, where self-improvement is the name of the game. We want to be better, we want to do better, we want to feel better, we want to build better. And with Mars, again, he has ants in his pants. There's a lot of restlessness there. There's a lot of motivation, determination in order to actually tweak, to make those smaller adjustments in order to align with the greater, grander whole. The moon and Mars working together in this way is definitely a fiery energy in our heart space. We're feeling that increase in motivation, determination to actually make a change. Again, once you know better, you got to do better. We know better. So now we have to kind of make those finer adjustments in our inner realm between our heart and our head so that we can put ourselves in a situation to take action and make moves when they present themselves. The moon in this Leo energy is then going to sextile, which is a beautiful interaction, with Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money. And of course, she is in Gemini energy. So this is air and fire, and this is definitely going to give us a combustion point, an activation point, a trigger point in our heart space to realize what it is that we no longer want, need, and desire, and what we would prefer instead. Again, with Venus and Gemini energy, the grass is somehow greener on the other side. We're open to experimenting and exploring what we could switch up, what we could change, what we could adopt in our day-to-day lives in order to build a realm and reality that not only looks good, but that feels good as well, ensuring our safety and security, ensuring this new level of self-love, self-worth that we have built within ourselves is actually coming out to play. The moon in Leo energy is giving us the boldness, the bravery, the courage that we need in order to make said decision, to break away from the old and to start pursuing the new. 7:03 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the moon is going to go void of course. This is when things get shaky, unstable, uncertain, and of course, probably going to activate a lot of emotion, seeing as we are going void of course while still in Leo energy. The moon in this void is then going to semi-square Jupiter, the planet of growth, expansion, beliefs, abundance, and blessings. He's in Cancer energy. And of course, this isn't the greatest aspect, which means that Jupiter is not going to bring the goods. Meaning he usually brings positivity. He usually brings optimism. He usually brings a illumination on where it is that we're going through a growth point. He usually magnifies where it is that we can pluck out the silver linings and where it is that we are building an emotional foundation and structure of safety, security, and comfort within us. This is not that, which means that we are being magnified to where it is that we're not feeling so hot, not feeling so good, not feeling so positive, not feeling so confident, where we're having a hard time accepting the fact that we're not being punished, we're going through a growing pain. And we are definitely going to whine and cry, and we are definitely going to put our guard up and be defensive, and we are definitely going to, again, start spiraling by looking back at the past of what could have been, what we think should have been. Again, this is not the best type of interaction. It is putting us in this heart space where it is that we're looking back instead of being grounded in the present moment, and if nothing else, looking forward to the future. There's definitely a pull to sit in the darkness, to sit in the funk, everything that we were sure of, we are backpedaling on. And this, of course, does not feel good because it magnifies all of our fears, doubts, and insecurities. The moon in this void is then going to make a positive interaction, first with Saturn, second with Neptune, both of them retrograde in Aries energy. So this is fire on fire action, and we love fire on fire action when it's being aspected in a positive way such as this because it helps us burn through the junk and the gunk, the heavier thoughts, the heavier emotions. It helps us to burn away the cords of attachments that we should have realized at this particular point are holding us back, restricting us, limiting us from moving on and moving forward. Now, the interaction with Saturn, of course, is going to help us realize where we have to get organized in our emotions, where we have to get a little bit more realistic in our emotions. Again, with the moon in Leo energy, even though we are in a void, there is a dramatic attention seeking energy that comes out to play when we're being aspected in not the greatest way. And so we're acting a little bit extra. Everything is a lot bigger than it actually is, especially where our emotions are concerned. So Saturn is here to give us a little bit of a reality check, to bring us back down to earth, so to speak, so that we can be operating in the actual emotions, the level of actual emotions that are legit. This is us realizing what we have to restructure in our lives, especially with the way that we're presenting ourselves. Again, in Aries energy, this has a lot to do with our identity, this new version of self that we're building. But Saturn is retrograde, so there is some refinement, some rebuilding, some restructuring, some revisions needing to be made. And as we've been going through this new moon in Leo energy, we're realizing what it is that is lighting us up, what it is that's going to bring us happiness and joy, and what is blocking us from tapping into all of that. The moon's interaction with Neptune is going to bring in some insight, especially intuitively speaking, on what it is that we would like to build and create in our exterior realm. And again, just a reminder, we have to have our inner realm in alignment before we can take action and make moves in the exterior realm. And considering the fact that Neptune is retrograde, the pause for our future goals, visions, and dreams are definitely being amplified because we have a mess to clean up here in the present moment. The residue of the old version of self, the old realm and reality that old version of self has built and created. We need to refine what we are still pouring our time, energy, and attention into in order for us to stabilize before we start gaining momentum in our exterior realm. Nonetheless, this is going to kind of refresh our soul and our spirit, remind us of what that goal, vision, and dream is, giving us the energy, the motivation, if you will, to keep that in focus so that we have the boldness, the bravery, the courage, the motivation, the determination to clean up the mess of the past and essentially of the present moment. The moon is then going to trine, which is a beautiful interaction with Chiron, the wounded healer, in this Aries energy. So again, this is fire on fire action in the most positive of ways. This is a beautiful interaction for us to pivot and start looking at ourselves through a positive lens, through a lens of strength, a lens of admiration, a lens of pride. We are starting to realize that we have done a great job in growing through what it is that we've been going through, healing what it is that we've been feeling. And of course, all of this is just giving ourselves a little bit of a pep talk, a little bit of a pat on the back, so to speak, in order for us to continue this particular momentum. We're getting real and raw and vulnerable with ourselves. We are operating from our most authentic heart space. And because of that, there is a new power, a new strength that we are feeling within ourselves. We have Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, ruler of information communication, how it is that we express ourselves, retrograde in the heart and soul of the zodiac in this Leo energy, making a beautiful interaction with Uranus, the great awakener, who of course is in Gemini energy. So a couple of things here. First of all, Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, meaning Uranus rules over the higher realms of our intelligence. It connects us with the higher dimensions of intelligence and kind of gives us guidance from the higher realms, if you will, our higher selves. Mercury rules over the lower level of our intellect that kind of governs our ego avatars. And when we have Mercury and Uranus come together in a positive interaction, it is our attempt to kind of kick down the wall, the partition, if you will, that separates our lower mind from our higher mind. This is an alignment, trying to stream through new information, new details, new perspectives that, yes, is going to challenge the old programming. That's what Uranus and Gemini is all about. However, with Mercury retrograde in Leo energy, this is a rewriting of not only our narrative, but the emotions that back up that particular program. And so this is a beautiful interaction to kind of see things from a different lens. There's a new level of creativity coming in to give us some solutions to some long-term standing problems that we haven't been able to resolve on our own. This is us being able to kind of see the finer details that are making up the greater, grander, let's call them problem or solution, if you will. And this is an element, an aspect, if you will, that pushes us outside of the box that we're used to operating in, for us to think outside of the box, to disconnect to, let's call it the hive mind, and to start kind of thinking on our own, individually, uniquely, specifically with what our goals, visions, and dreams are pushing us to do and pushing us to pursue. The sun in Leo energy is then going to make a very harsh interaction, very uncomfortable interaction with the North Node in Pisces. And so, of course, this isn't going to feel good. This is us questioning ourselves. The sun is our ego identity. It's the life force energy that fuels this physical ego avatar. And in Leo energy, yeah, we should be bold, brave, and courageous. But again, we're still under the dark phase of the moon, which means that emotionally speaking, we don't feel it. We're just kind of faking it. We're wearing a mask, so to speak. The North Node in Pisces wants us to think about the path that we're on, wants us to get in alignment with the next goal, mission, dream, purpose. However, this is not the greatest interaction. So we're actually thinking about the future and not feeling confident or adequate enough to actually feel like we have what it takes to build and create the realm and reality of our desires. This is us getting down on ourselves, hard on ourselves, beating ourselves up, breaking ourselves down, if you will. This is us just kind of not realizing that we don't really have the energy, the encouragement, the support of the cosmos right now to make a dramatic change, not only within ourselves, but within our physical realm as well. And of course, that negative ass narrative is going to kind of start picking at us. We are going to find ourselves just second guessing and questioning everything that we did start feeling good about. But it is at this time, 4:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that the moon is going to shift into Virgo energy. So we're definitely coming back down to earth, but we're coming back down to earth with a splat, with a little bit of a negative narrative, a little bit of a harder inner critic, because that's what Virgo energy is all about. We have to beat ourselves up and break ourselves down in order to build ourselves up in a much better, much more logical, practical way. And so again, just a reminder that the very first degrees of a Virgo transit are very tough, because we have to focus on the problem. We have to focus on what isn't working, all an attempt through this particular transit to fix it, heal it, and repair it. We waste no time. We have the moon in Virgo getting into the boxing ring, squaring off with Uranus in this Gemini energy. So interestingly enough, Virgo energy, Gemini energy are both ruled over by Mercury. And as you know, Mercury is currently retrograde in this Leo energy. We're trying to get our heart and head on the same page. We're trying to flip the script on our inner dialogue, on our emotions. And so having the moon in Virgo get into the boxing ring and square off with Uranus and Gemini is going to be really hard on the head. We have to be illuminated to where it is that evil ass narrative that we use to speak to ourselves has got to go. We have to understand that Uranus and Gemini energy is here to challenge that old narrative, here to challenge that old belief system, here to challenge those old ideas, that old information, that old perspective, those old opinions. But in order to do that, we have to figure out what out of all of that isn't working, what isn't encouraging, what isn't supportive, what isn't giving us the option and opportunity to flip the script. That's where the problem lies. That's where we have to zoom in. That's where the moon in Virgo energy is going to break things down, even if it's hard, even if it's tough, even if it makes us feel like crap, to the smallest minute pieces of that inner dialogue to understand who planted those seeds. Why do we continue to water them? This is definitely going to be a jolt to our mental plane. This is going to put us in a little bit of a funk because, again, there's a lot going on in our inner realm, especially in the realm of the inner workings of our mind space, of our inner dialogues, of our inner narratives that has got to go. That Gemini energy is showing us where it is that we're coming from, where it is that we want to go, and what is missing is the new script that is operating here in this present moment. The moon in Virgo, then going to make a very harsh interaction with first Saturn, retrograde in Aries, second Neptune, who is retrograde in Aries, and third Pluto, who is retrograde in Aquarius. So again, when I say to you that the very first degrees of a Virgo transit are always tough, always highly judgmental, super critical, super negative in a lot of ways, bringing on a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. This is just part of the process. So you got to lean in. Now, the moon's interaction with Saturn is here to highlight the negative ass narrative, to highlight the pressure, the weight that we're carrying on our heart space, on our shoulders, of the roles and responsibilities that we have, of this new version of self, the parts that aren't working, the parts that aren't encouraging, the parts that aren't supportive. This is a time to restructure that in our inner realm, where we have to have a stronger sense of discipline, a stronger sense of willpower in order to overcome the challenges that we are currently being faced. The interaction with Neptune is also not going to feel so hot, and it's going to put us in a state of confusion, and for some could push us into a state of delusion. Why? Well, because Neptune, when aspected in not the greatest way, such as this, not only creates an element where we want to disassociate from reality altogether, we want to curl up in a ball, we want to run, we want to hide. It is the escape artist of the zodiac. And so we're overwhelmed with thoughts, with emotions. We don't have the clarity that we want. We don't have the path, the strategy as clear as we would want. And so what happens? We start to spiral. We start to create anxiety. We start to, let's call it, imagine all the shit hitting the fan, all the things going the wrong way. And what does that do? Is it anchors us further and further in fear, doubt, and insecurity. So of course, that's not going to feel good. We're losing the vision, the goal, the dream. We're losing the faith. We're losing the hope. We're losing even the clarity on what it is that we wanted earlier in the day. So when the moon in Virgo finally makes this last interaction of the day, not a great one, with Pluto, who was retrograde in Aquarius energy, if you've been with me for any amount of time, you would know that Virgo energy, Pluto energy, when they work well together, we flip the script in our psyche. We unpack a lot of those negative ass narratives. You would also know that when the Virgo energy and the Pluto energy don't work well together, it is going to create an absolute shitstorm of shadow aspects. So let's talk about it. Pluto, because he is retrograde, there's an inner, let's call it reassessment of our self-sabotaging programming, where fears, doubts, and insecurities creep up and put us in a state of paralysis. Because Pluto illuminates for us power and control issues, right now we feel powerless. We don't feel like we have control over our thoughts, over our emotions, over our circumstances. And that exasperates the situation and circumstance of us feeling like we just don't know what to do. It's creating more anxiety. It's creating a negative ass narrative. It is showing us where it is that, again, the inner dialogue, the inner narrative, the way that we speak to ourselves, the way that we see the world has got to give. It's got to change. You cannot have this new version of self be operating on the old mental programming. And so is this going to feel good? Absolutely not. It's not supposed to, but it is supposed to highlight for us where it is that we tend to dip into the darkness very quickly. The minute that we don't have the clarity, the minute that we don't feel in control, the minute that we can't micromanage all the situations and circumstances in our physical realm, why do we dip into the darkness as quickly as we do? This is going to push us in a situation where we have to dissect our psyche, understand the why, understand the how, understand who planted it, understand why we're continuing to water it. And the minute that we have an illumination of those particular negative ass narratives, that's when we have the power and control to flip the script in our favor, in a way that encourages us, that supports us, and gives us a little bit of that power and control back.